Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Bethanne. Today I'm doing the bookshelf tag. I was tagged by John over at Hey Y'all Listen Up, so I'll post a link to his channel down in the description below. He posted a great bookshelf tag video as well, and it was really fun to see his shelves. So definitely go check that out if you get a chance. So let's dive right in. So the first question is, how many bookshelves do you have? We have 7, some of which are quite large, like the one I'm in front of, which is a built-in that goes almost all the way up to the ceiling, and we have tall ceilings. But towards the end of the video, it's basically do a tour of your bookshelves. So you'll see all my bookshelves then. So 7 bookshelves. Question number 2, how many books are on your bookshelves, or how many books do you think you have? Yeah, that's hard to answer. At one point, I think I counted all the books I owned, but that was several years ago and many, many moves ago, and I keep accumulating new ones and I keep getting rid of books. So who the heck knows? I also still have boxes of books at my parents' house. Yeah, how many books do you think you have? So I guess between all 3 of us combined, so I have a husband and a daughter who's a 3-year-old, so she has a lot of books that take up a small amount of space because they're tiny. But yeah, I mean, I'd say we're probably in the like 1500 range or something, maybe like that. Got a lot of books. All right, question number 3, how do you organize your books? So I guess I would say loosely by genre. So we have quite a bit of shelf space. Actually, you can see behind my head here, got textbooks. Quite a bit of shelf space devoted to things like textbooks and field guides for birds and insects. We've got fantasy versus nonfiction, but we don't split up with like subgenre, within nonfiction, for example. I throw all my sci-fi and fantasy together, that sort of thing. So kind of by broad category. We used to alphabetize our bookshelves within category, which was so satisfying. It's completely unrealistic with a toddler because one of her favorite things to do is pull books off the shelves and make them into stacks and then knock them over. So we have shelves of all the low shelves are like accessible books that who cares if she puts them in a stack and knocks them over. Then all the nicer books are up high. But yeah, so there's no real organization anymore. But once she's a little bit older and no longer does that, my dream would be to alphabetize by author, last name within genre because I love it. It makes my soul happy. Okay, question number 4 is, what is the oldest book you own? So I actually pulled out 3 books because it turned out we have 3 books from before 1900, which I thought was pretty cool. We actually have several books that are kind of just over 1900, some books from 1900 to 1930 or so that were my grandma's books when she was growing up, and a couple different field guides. But anyway, I wanted to show off the 3 we have from before 1900. So the first is this, Wilson's American Ornithology, published in 1839. And this is it's a treatment of all the birds in North America at the time. So it's mostly descriptions of the birds. There's a few black and white illustrations that are pretty hard to really tell detail on at this point. This is in really excellent condition. It's something that I got as kind of like a collector's copy for my husband for Christmas one year, and then realized we were too poor to really do that, but we did it once, it's fine. Then we have, let's see, which one's next? Then we have, okay, a Quaker book. This one's in a bit worse shape. You can see there's some damage on the spine. So this is Observations on the Distinguishing Views and Practices of the Society of Friends by Joseph John Gurney. This is a lovely book. So I'm Quaker. I was raised Quaker, and I took some classes on Quakerism in college. And so at one point I'd been in a used bookstore and saw this volume, and it's from a Quaker thinker from the Civil War period, Joseph John Gurney, who, just wrote a lot of beautifully written thoughts on being Quaker, and kind of what that meant and how to do that in the world. So these are all just kind of boring to hold up, aren't they? They're just old and brown, but it's pretty cool to have. This is one I actually might read at some point. I've read selections of it, kind of available online, but I would like to sit down and actually read that book if I can bring myself to touch it that long. And then The final one I'm going to show is from 1895, and it's called Birdcraft by Mabel Osgood Wright, a field book of 200 song, game, and water birds. And so this one, like the first field guide I showed, is mostly descriptions of birds. This one does have some color plates. So this is just a really nice treasure. And somebody gave this to my husband at some point. We actually don't remember who, which is a little bit embarrassing, but kind of like a family friend. This was passed down through grandparents. We have a couple things like that, like a first edition of a Peterson bird guide, which is in the 1900s. But yeah, a couple things like that. So anyway, I thought that was fun, just to show we have 3 books before 1900, and as a book lover, I think that's really cool. At some point, I think it would be fun to have more old books, but it's also not the sort of thing I want to necessarily spend a ton of money on. Question 5, what is the newest book on your bookshelf? I think that has to be this, probably, Master of Poisons, Andrea Hairston. This is a new release. I think it came out in September or October, which is when I ordered it, brand new. I'm really excited to read this one at some point. This is epic fantasy, and the premise is a world that I think is just suffering from kind of catastrophic natural disaster, climate change disaster. So the synopsis in the jacket is talking about farmland that's turning into desert, something going on with the oceans, I want to say. Yeah, water turning foul. The wind blows sand and sadness across the empire. So I think whenever I heard about this book, it was just striking a chord with our own crisis of climate change, and I'm really curious to see that premise in an epic fantasy book. So I'm going to try to get to this in December, although my December TBR is getting really long, but I'm going to try. Question number 6, what is the longest book on your bookshelf? I didn't take the time to go around and try to find it. I am pretty sure it's probably going to be one of the later books in the Robert Jordan series, just a big fantasy tome that's like over 1,000 pages. Other candidates I could think of, we have some textbooks that are on the longer side, are definitely in the high 700, 800, 900 sorts of pages, but I think in terms of just actual page count, those Robert Jordan books that get up like over 1,000 are actually probably the longest. We have some Bibles. I don't know how many pages are in the Bible, but I don't think it's 1,000. So I'm going to say probably one of those big fantasy tomes, which brings me to I'm going to skip. So question number 8, what is the predominant genre? So other than science-related books, because I would say when it comes to like field guides and natural history writing, we're both biologists. I would say we probably have maybe the most books in that genre. But other than that, it's definitely fantasy and sci-fi, and especially if you're comfortable lumping them together into fantasy/sci-fi, which I do, then we absolutely have more of those than any other like nonfiction or fiction category, and they're my babies. I love them so much. They are on their own shelf next to my office desk. Okay, going backwards, question number 7, what is the shortest book on your bookshelf? That would definitely be one of the books belonging to the 3-year-old, I am pretty sure, because of course all of her books are like 5 pages long. Again, I'm not going to bother searching to find the shortest book because I don't think it's going to be very interesting. I think it'll just be a baby book. Question number 9, have you done a bookshelf tour? I have not, but one of the last questions on this bookshelf tag is to show off your bookshelves. And so I actually just filmed that, and so you can hear my voice telling you what's on my shelves. So there's a bookshelf tour at the end of this video. Okay, question number 10 is use a random number generator and then talk about the book that corresponds with that number. That's a very vague question. So I actually used a random number generator a couple times. So first I had to pick between the 7 bookshelves. Got number 7, which is the fantasy sci-fi shelf in the office. Then selected between the 5 actual shelves within that. Got the first shelf, selected book number 10. And that is a collection of the years of best science fiction, edited by Gardner Dozois. This is from 2002. I have no idea if this series is still going on. The spine of the book tells me that this was the 19th annual collection. But of course, there's lots of compendia of sci-fi and fantasy that have been published over the years. So this, I've actually read most of it. You can see where my bookmark is. I think as of a couple moves ago, and then we moved when I was most of the way through, and I never actually picked it up again to finish it. I was reading this when we lived in New Jersey. And I think, like, I remember liking a lot of the stories, thinking a lot of the others were lukewarm. I think there was nothing in here that I hated or thought was bad. So it was just kind of a nice survey. I remember feeling like I was getting a little bit of familiarity with authors I'd either never heard of or ones I'd been meaning to pick up for a long time and never had. So this was definitely useful. I think, actually, I should just read it really soon. This is the sort of thing that I love to have around the house now with a small kid underfoot. It's very easy to just sit and read a short story while she's doing her own thing and is doing some independent play and doesn't need me immediately, but will need me in the next 5 minutes. So having things like short stories around is really great for that. I think it's the sort of thing that I would probably then unhaul. I don't think I'm really interested these days in keeping this sort of like many author compendium sorts of volumes. I want to only keep things if I love like the entire book. So maybe I should just finish it and then kick it out of the house. But yeah, I'm glad I was reminded about this by that random number generator question. Okay, question number 11, is there fan merch or other decorations on your bookshelves? There is nothing deliberate. Again, with this, our most recent move happened 2.5 years ago when my daughter was 6 months, and so a lot of like homemaking stuff never happened because nobody has time with a tiny baby, and then the toddler pulls everything off the shelves anyway. So we have some random stuff on some of our bookshelves, you know, things like a couple family photos and things like that that aren't deliberate. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to that, fan merch or other decorations. Again, nothing deliberate. All right. The next question is showing the bookshelf. So we'll segue into that in just a second. The final question is to tag someone. So I'm probably not going to call out specific people, mostly because I think a lot of the people who I would have thought to call out have already done this, or I know have already been tagged by someone whose video I've watched. So if you're watching this and want to do this tag, it's really fun. The most fun I had was trying to figure out what was the oldest book we own, because I'm nerdy and love that. But if you decide to do it, please let me know in the comments so I'll know to check out your video. All right, so with that, I'm going to sign off. I'll say thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please hit the subscribe button, maybe give me a like on the video, and that's it from me, and I'll just show the last little clips just showing my bookshelf. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. All right, this is a bookshelf that's in between the doorway to my daughter's room and the doorway to the kitchen, and it's a pretty small bookshelf, so it started out as just like small paperback fiction, and it gets totally rearranged all the time because my daughter thinks this whole thing is a toy for her. And on top of it, we just have a whole bunch of junk because it's kind of a catch-all place for like keys and wallets and stuff, since it's right next to the kitchen. The life of living in a small apartment. And I guess I'll include my daughter's bookshelf just real quick, since some of her books are on another one of the adult bookshelves. But this is in her room. We've got all of her small kind of board books and some of her really small older kid books. But like there's some graphic novels up there in the upper left corner. And then the whole bottom shelf is supposed to be kind of her arts and crafts supplies, which it's her room, so it gets, it's kind of a disaster most of the time. This is one of our big bookshelves. This bookshelf started out as about half nonfiction, and then, so the top three shelves started out as nonfiction. So it's supposed to be like philosophy and history. There's a whole bunch of religion stuff on there because we both come from religious families, but neither of us are particularly religious, but there's some nice family history there. And then a bunch of history on the third shelf. The fourth and fifth shelf, as we're working down from the top, are kind of, now they're a little bit more general fiction-y, but they've got a lot of young adult and middle grade fiction there. That's stuff that I loved when I was a kid that I've been holding on to. that hopefully my daughter will read someday. And then on the bottom shelf, we've got all of her big kid books. And then we have some family tree type stuff. That's what that binder is on the bottom shelf. And a couple of big art books down there as well. And here we've got our complete set of great books that my husband inherited from his grandparents. It's a really nice bound set, so we decided to take them. But in my opinion, we need to actually read them if we're going to keep them. So we will see how long these stick around. All right, I can't even fit this whole bookshelf in the shot. There we go. This is a built-in. Our apartment came with two. We live in the bottom floor of a house that's, I think my landlady said 125 years old, so we have really tall ceilings. And they had installed these bookshelves. So this one, the top two shelves are supposed to be classics. I think they pretty much are. Then the middle two shelves are kind of textbooks and things we consult for work. And then the bottom two shelves continue the classics theme. And the very bottom shelf, I want to say, oh no, things have gotten mixed around a little bit, it looks like, probably because of my daughter. So the bottom two shelves, there's supposed to be a continuing classics section and then a poetry and plays section. So there's a bunch of poetry and plays books down there, but it looks like they're all mixed in with other stuff. All right, we're going to have a similar problem over here. Here's the other built-in going all the way up to the top. So this one is all natural history stuff, so it's mostly like field guides and identification manuals. There's a couple kind of popular science books up there in the upper left corner. And then as we work down, these are all field guides. You can see on that one shelf in the bottom right now, they're stacked too deep. My husband, this shelf these two shelves get used all the time, so that's why they're kind of all slanty. Right now, my husband has a big stack of his field guides out because he needs them for work regularly. Even though he's working indoors, he's got to consult bird ranges and things like that. On the bottom, his pride and joy, he's working on an entire complete handbook of the birds of the world, which is up to like 16 volumes or something. So we've got however many that is, 8 or 9 of them. So yeah, these shelves are mostly him with all the bird books, and there's a bunch of insect stuff on there for me also. Then this shelf over here, kind of in the corner, the top shelf is kind of nature writing, popular science writing, and then we've got more, the rest of it is all kind of general fiction. So these are books that were too big to be on the paperback shelf I showed first. And books that are fiction as opposed to fantasy and sci-fi. And then this is the last shelf. This is the shelf in my office. It's my shelf of joy. This is all sci-fi fantasy, and the books are stacked too deep because this is a very deep bookshelf, which I hate. There you can actually see the second row of books all the way back there. Yeah, so these are all my fantasy sci-fi books, and literally a shelf of joy, because on the bottom there I also have that's kind of my humor section. So I've got a bunch of comic books and like Ali Brosh's books and things like that. The shelf kind of in the middle that has some things that are not sci-fi on it is my TBR shelf, the one that we're kind of centered on right now. So it has some other things like nonfiction and general fiction that I've put on my physical TBR. So I think that is it for showing my bookshelves.